Welcome to the lower berth, the greatest show on earth. We appear without a sound, the darkest show around. We will leave you in a daze, madness, murder, dismay. We will disappear and now with blood on the concrete.
Hello, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough. And much like last year when I talked about Making Fiends, we're going to be talking about yet another show that Nickelodeon did dirty. And much like Making Fiends, this series is known for its macabre humor and its extensive fan base even after all these years. The series in question is Edgar and Ellen. Much like my Making Fiends review, I previously talked about this one in my old review of Nicktoons Network. And just like I eventually did a full-length review of Making Fiends last year, I became interested in this series' history, its creators, and where it currently is now after all these years. So let's start with the beginning. It all started with a series of books released in the 2000s, put out by Simon & Schuster's Children Publishing. The books were written by Charles Ogden, who's not even a real person. That was a pen name for a collective of writers who made the books. The two I want to home in on are Rick Carton and Drew Scott. We'll continue with them later, but as for now, it seemed that Rick Carton was the most behind the Edgar and Ellen books during its run. He was even responsible for the art on the covers as well as the art in the actual books themselves, seeing how these were novellas with every few pages containing art to accompany what was happening in the stories. Hell yeah, I remember when these books were new, seeing them at the bookstores with these two creepy twins staring right back at you with those malicious eyes. It was awesome. The main plot would follow two orphan twins named Edgar and Ellen. These two live all on their own in a decaying 13-story mansion outside of the town of Nod's Limbs, a picture-perfect little town that drives them both crazy. It's a lot like the Tim Burton nightmare world of suburbia you'd see in Edward Scissorhands.
We've got all the treats! Toothpaste, toothbrushes, pencils, peaches?
Oh god, really? They're that kind of town? They give away fruit and school supplies and toothbrushes on Halloween? Ugh. Great. Great. I'm now siding with them. I'm officially on their side now. Along with their tentacled furball with one eye they call Pet and their creepy mute landskeeper Heimertz, the two often build crazy inventions and hatch harebrained schemes in a neighboring graveyard and junkyard outside of their manor. You know, kind of like the Jim Carrey version of the Grinch. Their main adversary being Stephanie Knightley, the daughter of the town's mayor and the only one who seems genuinely enraged by these two pranking rebels who dare step out of line. In fact, that leans into what I think made these books so popular in their own right. It was sort of a right place at the right time sort of deal. In the early 2000s, we had the Hot Topic generation that loved gothic imagery, from the likes of Tim Burton, Invader Zim, and in the worlds of literature, you had Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events. Throw in some influence from Edgar Allan Poe, and you basically have these books, with the occasional poetry that they would throw in every so often, and even a Poe-like figure in the cartoon, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, the original books went from 2003 to 2007, the first being Rare Beasts, involving the twins kidnapping the town's pets so that they can sell them back as exotic animals. The second book, Tourist Trap, involves the Nod's Limbs mayor wanting to destroy the Gadget Graveyard so that he can build a hotel, and the twins end up sending a bunch of celebrities sponsoring the hotel's construction on a horrifying tour to scare them away. Book 3, Undertown, involves the twins going underground to uncover a new fiend who's terrorizing Nod's Limbs and taking away their favorite pastime. After that comes Pet's Revenge, where Edgar tries to snap Ellen back to normal after she suddenly becomes more like the people in the town. Highwire comes after that, revealing Heimertz's past in the circus when it comes back to town, and the last book, simply titled Nod's Limbs, involves the townspeople embarking on a treasure hunt to find the golden remains of the founder Augustus Nod's actual limbs, which winds up leading them to the Terror Twins' home. After the actual books came out, there were two more books to follow, Mischief Manual and Harem Scarum. Mischief Manual being told from the perspective of the twins themselves instead of in the third person like the main books, and as they call it, Out from Under the Thumb of Charles Ogden. That's where the original run of books ended, but then it was followed up with 3 more books throughout 2008 to 2009, these books being subtitled The Nodacy Arc. Continuing where the last series of books ended, first of these was Hot Air, which has our dynamic duo's lives being threatened after the upcoming mayoral election is announced, especially after these two succeeded at disgracing their rivals, the Knightley family. After that came Frost Bites, which has the two searching for Stephanie and coming across an Arctic village that's just as sugary and sickeningly sweet as Nod's limbs. And lastly, we have Split Ends, which has Edgar and Ellen having to go their separate ways. Edgar teaming up with a monster hunter, and Ellen and Pet winding up in a horrible town with terrible living conditions called Loch Lufless. The sad thing is, this was the last book, and it ends on a cliffhanger. Because of course it does. From what I was able to find, there was a final book written up that would have served as a finale. Unfortunately, the writer and artist Rick Carton passed away in 2017. But in an email that was screenshotted on Tumblr, Drew Scott confirmed the 4th Nodacy book was written and the intent was to have 2 more books follow that, but it was never published due to conflict with copyright and the publishing company keeping it from being released. So sadly, the Edgar and Ellen books met an abrupt end, with sadly no sense of closure after all these years. It seems like we're not going to get a proper wrap-up for these books anytime soon. However, before the Nodacy books were ever written, we got to see the twins leap from literature to animation in the form of several shorts and eventually a TV series on Nickelodeon. Okay, Nicktoons Network, but still, that's still pretty good. At the time, anyway.
Nicktoons Network's new original series, Edgar and Ellen.
Never send a machine to do a twin's job, brother.
This pranking duo will do just about anything.
Live for it?
But will they do it right?
Uh-oh. This could be a disaster. This is advanced mayhem.
Catch Nicktoons Network's new original series, Edgar and Ellen, coming October 7th.
From 2005 to 2006, there were 13 2-minute shorts featuring the characters. These were aired between commercial breaks and other shows that were being aired at the time. Sure, the animation isn't perfect, and most of the voice actors would be changed when the actual show came around, but I feel these did a wonderful job introducing general audiences to this series, as well as capturing the creepy and macabre feel that the books had in a short amount of time with little to no dialogue in the first few shorts. Along with the shorts, several holiday specials were created throughout the year, from Valentine's Day to April Fools to Back to School to Halloween to even winter. But by 2007, with Rick Carton and Charles Ogden at the helm, the series hit Nickelodeon, or Nicktoons Network, following the same premise as the book. 2 creepy twins, decrepit old mansion outside of a picture-perfect town, they do pranks, annoying prissy girl, etc., etc. But did it match the tone of the books as well as the shorts did? Well, the answer is... kind of. Just roll the opening. Not gonna lie, I like the opening theme to this show. It has a very Danny Elfman kind of sound to it. Fits perfectly with this show's kind of style. I remember loving the show when I was able to catch it back in the day, but revisiting the books and then rewatching the show, there are some noticeable differences. The biggest one being the tone. Compared to the original books, it's a lot less dark. The pranks they engage in are less harsh. Hi Mertz is less of an ominous presence as he is in the book. Seriously, look at him. He's a Freaky Fred looking motherfucker in these books.
Is it the scars? You wanna know how I got them?
Compared to the show, he's more of a gag character with people not knowing how to interact with him on account of him just giving an off-putting smile. Which is pretty funny, but it definitely feels different from the source material. And then that brings us to the twins' rivalry with Stephanie. In the books, she is portrayed way more as a villain, especially as the books carry on. Edgar and Ellen may not be good people, but the books truly show Stephanie's hidden evil and manipulative nature underneath her fake, prim, and perfect personality. Hell, in one book, she kills Ellen's pet carnivorous plant just to spite her. Nothing like that in the show. Sometimes Edgar and Ellen are the good guys and you want to see them get the one-up on their opponents. Other times you want to see them get theirs. Sometimes they work together with Stephanie. And honestly, that dynamic works in small doses, like in some of the specials where other villains come to town and it's literally up to these 3 to save the day. But other times it just feels like ambivalence towards good and evil is the general theme of this show. When it comes to the inconsistent tone, I think I have an educated guess for why that is. And yes, it also pertains to other shows on Nickelodeon that I've covered before on MediaWiz. Considering the uphill battle the team behind Invader Zim had in regards to its darker content, it's possible that they wanted this show to be a lot less dark and not have to face any kind of future backlash for it. And the same thing goes for Making Fiends. Considering some of the morbid humor in that series, it could be possible they got cold feet and decided to put these shows on their lesser known network. And in the case of Making Fiends, end it just after 6 episodes. And for the sake of keeping this show on, maybe they had to make it, quote, more marketable and not as harsh as the books that inspired it. In the cartoon, you have these two regretting getting a bunch of kids in potential harm, which honestly doesn't feel like something they would have done in the books. Stephanie is nowhere near as evil as she is in the books, and most of the time, you could even see her as in the right for not liking the duo's pranks. Heimertz is nowhere as threatening a character as he is in the books, and it feels like Nick may have intentionally did that so they didn't get calls from parent groups like they did years before with Invader Zim. Business-wise, it makes sense, and I could see why Nickelodeon would do it, but when it comes to the creative side of it and feeling like it's tampering with someone's vision, it is noticeably toned down from its source material, is all I'm saying. It's not to say that it never works in this show. In fact, if anything, this show has a sort of Addams Family feel to it. Edgar and Ellen may not be good guys or anything, but when they're not harassing the town, they often do it to each other, but they do it in sort of a supportive sibling kind of way. See, moments like that are very sweet, and I think that's where the heart of the show really starts to show itself. It's very similar to Addams Family. They might be creepy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky, but you can't say that they don't care about each other, at least on some level. I think another thing that took some getting used to in the show is the animation. The shorts may not have been perfect in this regard, but they had a dingier look to them with the colors and the titular duo looking a lot more like their book counterparts, with the designs in both looking like a mix between Tim Burton and Dr. Seuss, compared to the show where it seems like their eyes are bigger and they are a little more cute compared to the creepy-eyed kids staring back at you on the book covers. The show's color scheme is also a lot more colorful, which works for when we're in Nod's limbs, but even in their creepy mansion home, it isn't as muted or unkempt as it was before in the shorts. On top of that, the show is one of the many Flash animated cartoons that was coming out of Canada at the time, and the first few episodes definitely reflect that. Don't get me wrong, the animation gets better as the show goes on, but it's pretty apparent that there's a lot of reused shots or looped animation in the first few episodes. However, I think the voice acting makes up for this, and since this is good old Canucksploitation, you have some great Canadian voice actors appearing in this show who merge well into their roles. Edgar is played by Kathleen Barr, basically doing a toned-down version of her voice for Kevin from Ed, Edd n Eddy.
Welcome to my satchel room. It holds all my prank materials, and I protect it very seriously.
Ellen is played by Jillian Michaels, the same actress as Shippo from Inuyasha.
You need to know what happens before it happens. Seek out Madam Ellen. You are here to expose me as a fraud for an article for the school paper.
And Stephanie is played by Ashley Ball, the voice for Rainbow Dash and Applejack on My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
That's not a pet. It's a hairball another animal spit up. I bet it can't even do any tricks.
I gotta say, after years of hearing her play tomboy characters, it was really messing with my head hearing her play a prim and prissy character like Stephanie in this show. Another neat thing with this show was the inclusion of a 2-minute short segment after the 2 main episodes would go. These usually highlighted specific characters like Edgar, Ellen, Pet, Heimertz, the sentient bust of Edgar Allan Poe in the twins' house, and various people and businesses in Nod's limbs. Not only were these short, funny, and to the point, it also gave a lot of potential for world building in the setting of the show. Not just with key locations, but also the characters, backstory, and character dynamics, like Pet's love of Spanish telenovelas, or Heimertz's parental figure position to the twins. And what's really cool about these segments? They were usually based on fan suggestions. Fans would be able to write in on the Edgar and Ellen website and leave ideas for skits, and they'd even be given a shout out somewhere in the shorts.
What do you suggest today, I wonder? It's from Isabel in Illinois. I dare you to pull a prank using shaving cream, toothpaste, and a jar of fire ants. 10-year-old Jacob dares me to play a prank using a zombie, a beehive, and a toilet. Ooh, tough combo, Jacob.
But we must also ask a very important question that also pertains to other screwed over Nickelodeon cartoons. How many episodes did it get? The answer is 26. Surprisingly a decent number of episodes. It's almost the same number of episodes Invader Zim got. Now, unlike other screwed over shows, I don't think this one was necessarily Nick's doing. Despite it being marketed as a Nicktoon original, it was made in Canada and it was aired on other networks all around the world. So this doesn't feel as much of a backstab move as Making Fiends got, since it wasn't really made in-house like that one was. But overall, after all these years of these two characters being absent from pop culture, is this show worth checking out? I'd say yes. I mean, it really depends if you're into gothic and quirky shows like this, but yeah, if you are, I'd say it's worth checking out. This show does lean a lot more into kid-friendly slapstick every once in a while, and considerably less morbid as its source material, but it does have a decent number of visual jokes, banter between the characters, and even puns. And hey, if you're able to make me laugh at a pun, you're doing something right. It's also interesting to see a more episodic take on the series compared to the continuing storyline in some of the books. Even with some of the more cliched plots for some of the episodes, they still found a way to do them well with the writing and their cast of characters. If anything, some of the plots might be a little bit redundant, with a lot of them following a similar structure of twins prank town, Stephanie butts heads with them, one of the two parties ends up getting theirs, and the other comes out on top. But honestly, I didn't really mind all of that. I've seen other shows that are formulaic, but people adored them. So just because this show can feel a little formulaic at times, I don't think that was a major problem with the show. If anything, I'd say start with the shorts and the specials, and then work your way up to the episodes and see how they compare. But much like the fanfare that Making Fiends got before it was inevitably dumped onto Nicktoons Network along with this show, there was a decent ad campaign for the series when it was first coming out. They hosted a Halloween-themed marathon, there was the website, they had a whole themed section at Target stores with various merch of the books and the show in 2007, they had posters and other merch being sold at Del Taco. Of all the fast food places they could have gone with, the one that answered the call was Del Taco.
Oh, you like Del Taco? Do you not like Del Taco?
There were 2 board games based on this series, with Mischief and Mayhem and Scavenger Hunt, and they even had DVDs. One was for the shorts specifically, and one was for the full series. So at least there's that. If you're down with physical media and you want to see this show preserved, you can always find the DVDs online. So while it did last longer than Making Fiends, and while there are some aspects that I don't think are as good as the original books that inspired the cartoon, I really don't have anything against Edgar and Ellen. I mean, we can be sad that it ended early, but I think it'd be better we just be glad that it happened at all. From the books to the cartoon, they had a unique look, interesting style of humor, colorful cast of characters, iconic main characters, and a nostalgic legacy right at home with some of the other shortly lived Nick shows that were inevitably pushed to the side. We may not know the official reason as to why this show didn't last as long as it did, especially after the extensive marketing push it initially had, and probably never get to see Odyssey number 4 since it's currently unpublished. But let's just be glad for what they did, and see what they managed to do with 2 creepy kids that managed to harass a whole town and work their way into our hearts. I just remembered, in my original Nicktoons review, I joked about these guys being less menaces to society than YouTube prank and social experiment channels. Well, I guess we can add IRL streamers to that list. Yeah, you heard me right. Edgar and Ellen are galaxies above losers like Jack Doherty. Fact. Well, that does it for Edgar and Ellen, but Halloween is still in a couple of days, and like I always try to, I have one more video planned for the month. It's gonna be a horror movie review, and not to give too much away, but let's just say it's about clowns. That's all I'm gonna say. Until next time, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough.
Okay,